Joining us now, Republican Congressman from the 9th District of Virginia, that's Southwest Virginia area from Salem, is Congressman Morgan Griffith. Congressman, great to have you.
Great to be with you. Hope all's well.
Bernie Sanders says never let a crisis go to waste. Any bailout money that goes to a company like the airlines or Carnival Cruises, he says the government should be a part owner and we should start nationalizing industries. That's one extreme. The other extreme is the Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, yesterday upping the bailout, or let's call it the stimulus, to 1.2 to 1.4 trillion. Of course, that'll just add on to the debt going directly to people, unemployment insurance, small businesses, Senate in session, Congress is not. Congressman Griffith, can you unravel this whole thing for us?
Well, I wish I could, and the answer is no. We have a crisis. There's no question that there's some things that were in the second bill that were somewhat questionable. I'm hearing rumors about the third bill. Very nervous about what may be included, what may not be included. It's, we're in a tough circumstance as a nation. The government is telling people, stay home, don't work. Restaurants are closing everywhere. The YMCAs are closing, gyms are closing, and it's all because the government has told them to do so, and it's probably the wise thing to do in light of the virus and its particular peculiarities and the fact that we don't know everything about it because it is brand new. On the other hand, I think there needs to be some criteria on how we hand out money if we're going to hand out money, but it sounds like they're proposing just everybody gets $1,000. Well, everybody's going to have to pay that money back at some point. And the problem is it'll be through taxes, and you won't, they're not going to send you a bill. It'll be through increased taxes, which will then have a negative impact on the economy. So look, we're going to have some tough decisions to make in the next week or so. And I can't tell you until I see the bill how I'm going to vote on it, because I have to read the bill, study it, think about it, and I'll make a decision. But, Saturday's bill was, I think, more good than bad. We did that at early morning Saturday. Mm-hmm. I think it was more good than bad, but there's some bad stuff in there. And that's why they had to do, a bunch of corrections. So we'll see. I wish I could unravel it for you. And I normally don't like to give you answers like that, as you know, but we're just in an unprecedented area, and I haven't seen the final proposals coming out of the Senate yet or from the Mnuchin.
You guys passed a stimulus bill to help people that are going to be unemployed, restaurants and theater workers and things of that nature, for $750, $800 billion. The Senate upped it now to $1.4 trillion. I'm pretty good at math. That's nearly double. I mean, and tomorrow it's going to be $1.8 million. Somebody got on TV today on Squawk Box, that idiot Scaramucci, and said it had to be $4.1 trillion or the economy was going to collapse and we were all going to die. How bad is this thing?
Well, the economy or the disease? The disease is not going to kill all of us, obviously. The problem is that it will, if we don't do some things, we will have a significant number of deaths. We're trying to prevent that. That's why you have all these strict measures. And it's hard to do it in one area and not do it in another. But right now, the 9th District has no cases. And so, you're looking at restaurants closing down in an area where there have been no cases. It does make you wonder. But at the same time, this has gotten out of control in Italy. They didn't close the whole country down, so it's hard to say what the right answer is, and that's the dilemma that we're having. So we've got everything shut down. That's going to be a big negative to the economy. It should save a lot of lives. Thousands of lives will be saved because of it. And what we have to hope is that we get out of this fairly quickly, that we take that curve, and once we get the curve bent, then I think we can start to relax a little bit of these measures, not all of them, because we don't want to have a second bounce from the virus. But I think if we can get through this next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a pretty good idea of where we're going. And every day we're getting more data and more information on how the virus acts and exactly what we need to do. So we'll be in a better position to, perhaps ease up on some of these restrictions.
So, Congressman, we're looking here at about another month, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was. I could tell you it was 3 weeks, but we're probably looking at about a month. Yes, sir.
That's kind of the way I look at it. Another month. Here's a concern that I have. What's the criteria to go back to opening things up again? Like you close schools for 2 weeks. Okay, I get it. 2 weeks comes. Everybody knows schools aren't going to reopen, and of course the governors are going to try to outdo each other. And some have already called for school to be closed until August, I think, in Ohio or something. And then you're going to get somebody to close schools for 2020, and then you're going to get some other governor to say, well, why do we even have school? Why don't we just have everybody do it from home? I mean, all this is coming, right? Because they all got to one up each other. But after schools being out for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, what is their criteria to open them up again? That's the biggest fear that I have. And who's going to want to be the first governor to say, it's time to get kids back in school? And then somebody gets sick and somebody dies and the school district is sued for $1 billion, right? I mean, these are all realities of the world that we're in now.
Well, and it's unlikely any school child would die. The problem is they may take it home to a grandparent.
Right, that's what's going to happen.
Issue.
So you know as well as I do that anything that stays open and they can trace grandma that's 97 died because it somehow got transmitted to her through somebody being open, that entity is going to get sued, right? I mean, there's already the people on that cruise line that got quarantined. They're already faced with 8 lawsuits of $10 million each. I mean, it's part of our society now. So my question is, what is the criteria? Like, when do you say, okay, now the curve is down, we'll open up schools? No, everybody will say, well, it's not down far enough. I mean, there's no answers to these questions because of the uncertainty. It's not like we said we're going to close schools until the percentage goes from X to Y. So it's all subjective. That's my question.
It's a legitimate concern, and I wish, and I understand you're right. The governors are out there all trying to, make sure they were being very protective of their states, and as you say, one-upping each other. I wish instead they had come out with a community rating kind of system where they would say, all right, Arlington ought to close. There's a lot of cases there. Eastern Virginia, there's some counties there have been, more than one case. Okay. I have 22 counties and 7 independent cities, and we don't have any cases yet. So my concern is it's coming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not going to get here. But we probably could have been in school this week and closed next week because we're not on the front edge yet. We will be. And if they had a criteria that said, if a case gets within 50 miles of your school system, then you should close. All right, that may have made more sense to me, and then we could work it in reverse, that once you've gone a certain number of weeks with no case within 50 miles of your school system, you could reopen. Instead, we closed the whole state down based on cases in Eastern Virginia, Northern Virginia. Not saying it's not coming to Southwest. I'm just saying it isn't here yet. But, so what I think maybe we need to work on a criteria like I just described. The docs are going to have to help me. I will try to talk to the people in D.C. Right now, they're worried about national concerns, but how close do we need to draw that line? Mm-hmm. And then anybody who travels, outside of the county, maybe get self-quarantined for a few days to make sure they're not bringing it back in. Mm-hmm. But like I say, 22 counties, 7 independent cities. The district is larger than the state of New Jersey, and as of right now, knock on wood, we don't have a case. Tennessee has one about 21 miles from Bristol. And the next closest case is Harrisonburg, which is an hour and a half by car.
But what they say to this is, I was on a conference call with Mark Warner yesterday for reporters. And when one reporter brought that up, like areas that were unaffected, the answer is, well, that's because there's no tests. If they were tested, you would find hundreds of thousands of more cases. So the thing is, the cases they're saying the cases that we're reporting in the United States are not real, because we don't have adequate testing, because Trump didn't order tests or something, or whatever they're blaming him for.
Hang on. Let me put this to a stop. I know you feel the same way, but let me just say to everybody out there, this is not Trump's fault, no matter how much the Democrats want to make it Trump's fault. It is true that the CDC was a little slow in getting the RNA out to the private sector so they could come up with private tests. That's been a problem. They thought they could do it all themselves. That's been a problem. But look at what we did, starting in Obama and finishing in the Trump. But in the last 4 years, over the last 4 years before this year, we increased the money to the CDC. We increased the money for stockpiling of emergency medicines and emergency supplies for just this situation. And we increased research money. So, this is not something that Trump did. We learned about the virus from China. The first we knew about it was December 30th, 31st. And in that short period of time, he closed down the travel. Maybe we should have made it even tighter, but everybody would have thought it was draconian. And none of the experts were telling Trump that he needed to do that, to close it down even further. He did everything the experts were telling him to do at the time. Is it true that we would like to have more testing? Absolutely. And if CDC rolls out the RNA genetic material of the virus, we'll get more calibrations done. Drive-through is already starting in the eastern part of Virginia. I read a clip that drive-through is starting in, I think, Lynchburg. Drive-through testing. The testing is coming. But here's the bottom line. It's true there are probably more cases in Arlington than we know about, and there are more cases in eastern Virginia. But when you have 22 counties that don't have any cases at all that have been reported, it's unlikely that we have thousands and thousands of cases. Now, will it be better when we have testing? Absolutely. And then maybe we can say if there's nobody has tested positive, for a certain period of days, a certain miles away, you can reopen your school system. I think we're going to have to come up with some kind of criteria like that. And then we're probably, as a part of doing all these other emergency things, we may have to look at saying, for this situation only, if they follow this guideline that the experts work out from, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Redmond and the CDC and, the Surgeon General, they work out the details. If you follow those guidelines as a school system, you will be absolved of any mere negligence. It would then have to be gross negligence. In other words, a student showed up, said, "Yeah, my dad has it," and you take no action. But we're going to have to. All of this is going to have to be. We're learning as we go, and it's all going to have to be on a case-by-case basis. And let me say this too, because it upset me when Nancy Pelosi came out and said, the first bill, she came out and said, "Oh, the president hasn't proposed enough money. We need a lot more money." Remember that all spending bills start in the House?
It was asinine.
Yeah. So bottom line
it was just
get your own bill, Nancy. This is your job,
unbelievable.
Not the president's job. Job proposes. You're the one who's supposed to steer the spending bill through the House, and you did nothing until the president made a proposal.
And then the
president said, "You want to spend more?" She did nothing.
Unbelievable.
Until the president made his proposal, and she had the power to do something.
Yeah.
And then when she said she wanted more money, the president said, "Okay, tell me how much."
And I'll sign it.
What do you think?
You pass it, I'll sign it. But see, that's the whole thing. See, that's the fraud. And I really hate to say this on the air, but I'm really pissed off about that whole thing. That's the fraud that some Democrats are perpetrating on the American public. Like somehow this is Trump's fault. Like he didn't appropriate enough money. I mean, I was in that press conference, and somebody asked the question, "Well, you proposed $2.5 billion. She proposed $8 billion," and he's like, "It doesn't matter what I propose. They have to pass it. I don't control it. They want to give me $8 billion, I'll sign $8 billion. They want to give me $100 million, I'll sign that." So that was ridiculous. Also, I tell you what infuriated me, and I don't mean to go on a rant with a congressman on the phone, but I called her Lady Macbeth. Elizabeth Warren blasting the Trump administration yesterday for not doing enough, not being proactive enough. Are you kidding me? When Trump was banning flights from China, she was campaigning in Iowa and New Hampshire. When Trump was first looking at this, she was sitting in the bowels of the Senate on an impeachment trial telling us why we should take the president and remove him from office. You have got to be kidding me. I mean, the audacity of these people. She didn't do a damn thing about this. She was out campaigning and trying to impeach the president, and now she's going around saying, well, if he had acted sooner, we wouldn't be in this situation. I mean, how do you stand it in there?
Well, sometimes it's hard. And I'll tell you the toughest thing is that we get these larger bills, and the one we had Saturday, I did get a chance to read through it. I did not have a chance to figure out how to fix it or how to do anything with it. But you get these larger bills, and you have, oftentimes, and we're going to try not to do that again on this, but oftentimes you have, 45 minutes to an hour to decide, is this better than doing nothing? And that's what we made a decision. I decided this bill was better than doing nothing, but it was not a perfect bill.
Right.
And now we're going to bring another bill the senators are talking about, and I'm going to try to do the best I can. I wish I could tell people I had, a crystal ball and could tell everybody what was the perfect thing to do. I can't. But I will say this, and we have to keep reiterating this. If you're younger and not at risk, just remember you might be carrying it. So don't go to visit live your elderly grandparents or parents. Call them on the phone, check on them. If they need something, drop it by, but make sure you wipe off whatever container you brought it in with alcohol wipes before you leave it, because they are seriously, the numbers in the 80 up group are going to be staggering if we don't get this thing under control. And that's what we're trying to do. And it's going to be tough on the economy. And they'll probably blame that on Trump too. They couldn't take him out any other way. So now they have to blame a virus that started in China that he had nothing to do with. They're going to try to blame that on him.
So we're going to pass something. It looks like $1.2 to $1.4 trillion. That's going to be a combination of direct unemployment insurance paid by the federal government that people put out of work. Looks like everybody's going to get something about $1,000. Looks like there's going to be SBA guarantees through local banks, one-page application in order to give businesses with under 100 people access to basically interest-free or very low-interest loans over a period of time. All this is going to happen. It's going to happen, as Mnuchin said, in 2 weeks. And all this money is going to get injected into the economy. We've already got the liquidity coming in for banks. Banks are in a pretty good position right now. It's let's project ahead a month, right? It's April, the end of April, beginning of May. The curve goes down. Things open up again. Can we, if that scenario plays out, can we get out of this by July?
August. I think we can get out of it by August, in the sense that I think we can have the economy fully percolated again.
August.
If we don't get a bounce, and that's what we've got to be careful of. That we get the curve, we ease up a little bit, and then if we get a bounce, that could delay it a little bit more. But I think we can be out of this by August. Maybe late July, I would hope. But I think August is realistic, and the economy will start percolating really quickly because there's a lot of pent-up demand. Also, we'll be bringing back jobs to the United States. There are some industries that are adding jobs currently. I know a grocery store chain based in Abingdon, Virginia, is looking to hire people because they've got to get the food on the shelves and move the product. And so there are some places that are adding, but the minute we can get through this and get people back to work, I think the economy's going to boom.
All right, I hope you're right. John Fredericks Radio Network. I want to thank Congressman Morgan Griffith. Great candid dialogue, as always, Congressman. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. 9th District, Southwest Virginia. There are no cases of the coronavirus in the 9th District in Virginia. It is truly God's country. Congressman, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and let's hope it stays that way. Thanks.